welcome to the channel, where the roots of Middle-earth run deep, and the branches stretch into mystery, myth, and marvel. Today we journey beyond the borders of Fangorn, past what is spoken in the common tales, to explore a question that stirs the leaves of old. Could the Entwives have created a new race of treefolk? What became of those wandering shepherds of the fields, long sundered from their forest-bound kin? Did they leave only memory, or might they have kindled something altogether new? Let us walk under shadowed boughs and sift the old leaves of lore. When we meet Treebeard in the Two Towers, he speaks of the Entwives with reverent sorrow. We lost the Entwives, he says, and we cannot find them. They are gone from the eyes of the Ents, perhaps never to be seen again, but there is no mention of their death, no final word written into the bark of time. This absence, within Tolkien's world, where even silence speaks volumes, beckons inquiry. For the Entwives left Fangorn by choice, but they sought open lands and tamed gardens, unlike the wildwoods their mates cherished. They walked far away and made gardens to live in, Treebeard recalls. Might their love of growth, cultivation, and nurture have borne fruit beyond mere crops? The Entwives' departure likely occurred before the end of the Second Age. Treebeard's recollection implies centuries of sundered silence. It is possible that by the time of the War of the Last Alliance in year 3430 of the Second Age, they had already faded into legend. But Tolkien, in his letters, hints at possibilities beyond despair. In letter 144, he reflects, "I think that in fact, the Entwives had become estranged from the Ents, and that when Sauron ravaged the gardens they were destroyed." Yet even here, the word think suggests uncertainty. It is conjecture, unlike the definitive pronouncements given to many other races. The Entwives live in a liminal space between myth and memory, and therein lies creative potential. Let us consider what it would mean for the Entwives to have survived. Their affinity for agriculture, combined with their animating spirit, may have compelled them to cultivate not only plants, but life. In the Silmarillion, Yavanna, the Valor of Growth, voices a plea to Eru Ilúvatar, that her creations, the trees and green things, have guardians. From this desire came the Ent. If the Entwives were still in communion with Yavanna, and there is no reason to think they were not, could they too have been moved to foster a new kind of life, not wrought by fire or shadow, but by nurturing soil, song, and spirit? Such beings might not be Ents as we know them, nor Huorns, who linger dangerously between sentience and silence. These hypothetical treefolk could embody a gentler, more earthbound vitality, rooted in stewardship and renewal. Perhaps they walk less and grow more. Maybe their hearts are less like thunder and more like rain. Unlike Ents who remember the great songs of Arda, these would sing newer melodies, shaped by seasons of sowing and harvest. If such a race exists, their tale has yet to be sung fully, but echoes of it may already whisper through the rustling leaves. If we consider the Entwives not as lost, but as transformed, remade by time, toil, and the grief of sundered love, we must also reckon with the lands they called home. Treebeard speaks of them tending gardens east of the great river, likely in the brown lands beyond the Anduin. These regions were once fertile, but by the time of the War of the Ring in year 39th of the Third Age, they had become a desolation. Sauron's fires and war likely scorched the lands that once bore the Entwives' gardens. But total annihilation? That is uncertain. Tolkien never explicitly wrote therein. In Unfinished Tales, the tale of the Druidine reveals how ancient and hidden peoples could survive millennia, concealed from the wide eyes of the world. If the wild men of the woods could endure through secrecy and cunning, why not the Entwives, who already favored separation and silence? And if they did endure, through what means? Perhaps they changed, became quieter, more rooted to place, more like the land itself. This transformation might have birthed new modes of being, and with it, new life. What would such treefolk be? Not Huorns. Those are described as ancient, dangerous, and closer to shadow than light. In the two towers, Huorns move at night, full of malice toward orcs, not mercy. Nor are they simply lesser Ents. But if the Entwives shaped gardens as acts of love and order, it stands to reason they could also shape guardians, tender of stalks, watchers of sunlit rows. These tree folk might be born not by song and seed alone, but by a deep-rooted will inherited from the Entwives' long yearning for growth unspoiled by war or wildness. There is a poetic symmetry in such a creation. While the Ents represent the raw voice of Yavanna, the slow thunder of the deep woods, these new tree folk might embody her gentler sigh, the whisper of wheat in wind. If Ents are storm, then tree folk may be sunlight. This would not contradict Tolkien's world, but rather echo it with variation, as in a great lay of elven song where a chorus repeats, but the verses shift. Moreover, there is precedence in the Aenor's music. In the Silmarillion, Ilúvatar declares that each creative act, even when marred or hidden, shall find its fulfillment. And thou, Melkor, shalt see that no theme may be played that hath not its uttermost source in me. This includes the lesser harmonies of the world, the humble works of the Entwives among them. Their labor, though unsung in the grand histories, may yet have seeded a legacy. Perhaps it lies hidden in thickets, deep in forgotten groves, or watches quietly from beyond the riverbanks, waiting for a world healed enough to see them. In the quiet wake of the War of the Ring, when the world reshaped itself and the age of elves waned, there remained space for renewal. The Ents were few, dwindling in number, lamenting their long-lost mates beneath the stars. Yet, in this twilight, a question lingers like mist on the Anduin. What if the Entwives had already answered their sundered fate, not with despair, but with creation? Imagine, far from Fangorn, nestled between hills where the soil still remembers sweetness, a grove of quiet wonder. There, trees do not only sway, they listen. Not ancient, as the Ents, not wrathful like the Huorns, but new. Younger, perhaps, yet still bearing the echo of the Entwives' voices in their sap and seed. These beings might speak in root language, in rustles and rhythms too soft for hasty folk to catch. But to those who pause, who listen, might they not seem almost alive? More than tree, less than Ent, a third path? In The Nature of Middle-earth, 2021, Tolkien explores the metaphysics of body and soul, delving into the animation of living forms. There it is revealed that not all life in Arda is fee-bearing or soul-possessing as the children of Ilúvatar are, but there are second-born spirits, as it were, lesser intelligences woven into the world's fabric. Yavanna's plea to Eru resulted in the creation of the Ents, but she also loved all things that grow in the earth. Could she not have imbued the Entwives' gardens with similar spirits, fragments of anima dwelling in flower and thorn? If the Entwives survived Sauron's blight, and there is no text that irrefutably claims they did not, perhaps they returned to Yavanna in prayer, and Yavanna, knowing the Ents' grief, may have granted the Entwives a measure of her power, not to create as the Ainur do, but to awaken what was already living. Thus, these tree folk could be something rare, neither born of Ilúvatar's flame nor wholly of root and soil, but a mingling of both, like lembas that nourishes body and spirit. Tolkien's world is one of sorrow, yes, but also one of hidden hope. In the Silmarillion, even amid the ruin of Beleriand, Ulmo speaks to Tuor with a voice of promise. That same undercurrent flows here. Perhaps the Entwives, wandering eastward, saw the devastation that came and chose to lay down their walking and root themselves, not in fear, but in fidelity to the life they loved, a final sacrifice, to become part of the land they once tended. In this, perhaps, they became the first of the tree folk themselves. If these tree folk existed, born of Entwife will and Yavanna's grace, what signs might remain of their passage? What songs, what whispers in the woods? Perhaps they are known not by name but by effect, like wind that shapes stone over ages. In the east, where the maps of elves grow faint and Gondor's lore grows dim, the green still rises. Long after the Entwives were said to vanish, the wilds east of the Anduin bore strange fertility, as if the land had memory. Samwise, in his travels, spoke of trees growing anew, even in lands once blackened. Might this be the slow work of those who tend unseen? Consider, too, the cultures of men. The Rohirrim honored their land with reverence, their poetry thick with natural metaphor, root and sun and harvest. Could echoes of the Entwives' teachings remain there, passed on in half-remembered field rituals or rhymes? In unfinished tales, we read of the Druidain, forest dwellers, quiet, carved from stone and mystery, who speak with birds and hear what others cannot. Though of a different origin, their existence affirms a wider world where strange beings walk in secret, and where ancient pacts between spirit and leaf still matter. In Numenor's height before the prideful fall in year 3319 of the Second Age, the lawmasters studied the tongues of trees. They spoke of the music of Ada that even stone remembers. Might they have glimpsed signs of the Entwives' legacy in distant lands? Forests where trees moved not by wind but by will? Their records are mostly lost, drowned beneath the sea, but Tolkien hints at lingering truths in the Lost Road, where dreams carry memory across time. And what of the Fourth Age? Aragorn reigns in Gondor, and peace returns, for a while, but the Ents do not fade. Treebeard himself is said to remain alive, his search for the Entwives unresolved. Yet what if his longing was never meant to end in reunion? What if the Entwives' fate lies not in their return, but in their renewal, through the treefolk whose very existence answers the loss with life? In this, the Ents' song continues, though altered. The treefolk would not be great in number. Like the dwindling elves, they might choose seclusion. Yet in every glade where silence sings and roots entwine with memory, there might dwell one of their kind, watching, waiting, not lost, but patient, as trees are. Perhaps they will awaken more fully in some distant age, when men forget the names of elves and Ents alike, and yet find themselves protected by the woods once more. The question that brought us here, could the Entwives have created a new race of treefolk, was never merely one of biology or myth. It was a question of longing, of legacy, and of what endures when songs go unsung and paths grow over. Tolkien's world is rooted not in certainty, but in faith, in things hidden, forgotten, and yet fiercely remembered by those who love them. The Entwives, like so many figures in his legendarium, stand at the edge of narrative and mystery, never fully revealed, never wholly lost. In creating Middle-earth, Tolkien allowed the space for mystery to breathe. He once wrote, "I am not a democrat. I think that ordination of forms and powers is necessary." Yet he also insisted that many things should remain untold, so that the world feels vast, ancient, and real. The Entwives occupy such a space. Their fate is not closed, and so their potential remains open. Perhaps deliberately so, a gift to the imaginations of readers, the way a door half ajar invites exploration. Could they have created new life? Yes. Within the framework of Tolkien's world, it is not only plausible but profoundly meaningful. The Ainur shaped the world with music, the Valar with vision, the children of Ilúvatar with will and sorrow. The Entwives, beloved of Yavanna and daughters of Ada's green soul, may have created with care, with tending, with time. If any race in Middle-earth knew how to coax life from stillness, it was they. And so, the treefolk may live. Quietly, secretly, not in the pages of the Red Book or in the songs of the West, but in the hush between stories, where the light falls dappled through leaf. Perhaps some child of Gondor, wandering too far from the Anduin's banks, once glimpsed something that moved like a tree but breathed like a friend. Perhaps a farmer in Rohan gave thanks to a silent guardian who drove away the drought unseen. These are not tales that end in glory, but they are the ones that keep the world green. So let us end as we began, with wonder. For the Entwives may not return, but they may have never truly left. And in the deep places of the world, where root and river remember, their story still grows. Thank you for walking this path with us. May the road rise to meet you beneath the rustling boughs of Fangorn, and may you never forget to listen, for even in silence the trees may be speaking. Naver Melind. Farewell, friends. Until the next tale.